Holiness is the true secret to the success of priestly ministry. Those words of Pope Benedict XVI tell us so clearly why a priest is and what he's supposed to do. We looked in the last segment at the origins in the Roman Missal of the identity of the priest at Mass, that he's to act in persona Christi and to reflect Christ in everything he does. Why? Because it is Christ who acts in the sacraments. And so the priest's first responsibility in preparing to celebrate the sacred liturgy is to become holy. And that holiness is the one single most important prerequisite for the priest to effectively celebrate the Eucharist. Oh, sure, there are many other skills he must pick up. He must know how to use a microphone. He's got to be comfortable with his body and comfortable with being able to speak. He must know the texts inside and out. But the most important, the most indispensable, non-negotiable of all the prerequisites is for the priest to live a life of holiness. Only then can he join a gathered priestly people to the perfect sacrifice of Christ upon the cross. We've all known priests who've understood that extraordinary mandate. They're the ones who day after day let go of ambition and pride and seem to thrive on sacrificing, consoling, forgiving, and loving like Christ the high priest. I remember an old priest when I was a young boy. You may remember a priest just like this. I later found out that he never balanced a checkbook in his life. He was an administrative disaster who could drive any parish into chaos in a matter of weeks. But the people venerated him, not for what he did, but for who he was. He was, as St. Clare used to say of St. Francis, the man of God. You knew by the way that he moved that you were loved and cared for. When he walked into a room, everyone felt better just for his being there. And when you spotted him at the end of the procession at Mass, you knew God was going to be there, that it was a holy place. So too in the way he spoke. There was an inner peace and a calmness that told you everything was now going to be all right. And when he prayed, even in a language I did not yet understand, there was such an easy familiarity between him and his God that you were listening to two old friends, or the easy conversation of a couple who'd been married for 75 years. So by his bearing and by the way he spoke the sacred words, he reminded even little children of the presence of Christ. And where did he get all this from? What book did he read? What workshop did he attend? What degree did he get? What vitamins did he take? The simple truth is, of course, that he prayed. For only by that daily intimacy with Christ in the quiet of his room, in the busyness of his day, and in the crosses he was called to bear, could he have been conformed to Christ the high priest. He loved the Lord more than anything else, and he spent his whole day with him. And thus, he came to look like him. Our Holy Father, Pope Benedict XVI, has frequently returned to this theme, as he did in a conversation with diocesan priests from Albano, Italy, in 2006. The ars celebrandi, the art of celebrating, he insisted, first demands that the priest enter truly into dialogue between God and man, which is at the heart of the sacred liturgy. Announcing the word, he must feel himself in colloquy with God. Of course, we might be tempted to reply, every priest knows that when he stands at the altar. He's in dialogue with God. But do we always remember it? Is the focus at the average Mass that I celebrate more on Christ or on the performative and relational dimensions of the ritual I've been taught to enact? Are the individual relational aspects of art sometimes prior to and obstructive of the divine dialogue into which I am called to lead the people of God? He is in dialogue with God, the Holy Father reminds us, precisely because the texts of the Holy Mass are not theatrical lines or some such. What a great phrase. They are prayers, thanks to which, together with the congregation, I, as priest, talk to God. Pope Benedict XVI then introduces us to the mystagogical dimension of the Ars Celebrandi, recalling how the rule of Saint Benedict describes the monks' praying of the Psalms as mens concordat voci. So too with all the words and rites of the sacred liturgy. They begin with an enacted or spoken prayer, and only then invite us to enter into their meaning, to join the dialogue with God. Such a mystagogical approach to the liturgy, the Holy Father suggests, demands that we approach the sacred mysteries as, quote, a continuation of a permanent growth in adoration and in announcing the gospel, so that we might join our minds and hearts to the voice of the Church. Thus do we transform our I into the we of the Church, enriching and amplifying this I, praying with the Church, with the words of the Church, and being truly in colloquy with God. But why don't we? Is it because we share in an American obsession with doing over being, with relating over reflecting, with performance over substance, with pleasure over patience, with satisfaction over truth? Is it because we fear the silent, the reflective, the quiet presence of God in the heart of a listening child? We live in a society which loves to get things done. We are great doers. Thus, we are able to embrace with gusto the aspect of the liturgical reform which called us to do more. But we're not so good at reflecting, at meditating on the mysteries we celebrate. But without such mystery, without such meditation, without a life of reflective prayer, we will never be able to celebrate the Mass fully, consciously, or actually. How then can a priest approach the sacred mysteries, speak the sacred texts, or give his body, mind, and voice over to the immemorial rites, unless he's willing to seek the secret of this mystery in the silent beauty of the God who whispers to his heart? If the priest is not passionately in love with Christ and the sacred rites which join us to his sacred heart, if he's unwilling to or unable to empty his heart in the same way that Christ emptied his heart for us on the cross, then how can he take up the cup of salvation and call upon the name of the Lord? The secret, you see, is in three little words spoken to the priest when, after he is ordained, the chalice filled with wine and a bit of water and the paten containing the bread are placed into his hands for the first time. Three words the bishop says to him: agnosce, imitare, conforma. Know what you're doing, imitate what you touch, and conform your life to the cross. I suggest these three mandates describe a radically new and challenging way of relating to the sacred liturgy and plot a certain course for growing in the Ars Celebrandi. Accept from the holy people of God the gifts to be offered to Him. Know what you are doing. Imitate the mystery you celebrate, and model your life on the mystery of the Lord's cross. And when we come back, we'll look at each one of those in depth.